What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Code Peterson tutorial, and we are continuing our GB Studio series, making our vertical scrolling arcade shooter. And in this episode, we're adding our second enemy type, which is going to be a tank that has to be hit multiple times before it can be destroyed. So let's go ahead and begin. You'll see I have GB Studio open, and I have my assets folder open here. And if we go over here to sprites, I will bring in my tank. Just click and drag it. And our enemy tank, it can be fixed direction and movement or fixed direction. Again, this is going to be similar to my boat, but the difference is I want the tank to be a little bit harder to take down. So it's a little stronger, so it has to take multiple bullets to do that. Save, and then go here to our game world. And just like last time, we created a prefab. So we'll go here and add a prefab, and it's going to be an actor. And then we'll go up here and choose our sprite sheet. It's going to be the enemy tank. And this is going to be a collision group 1, because we said in our previous tutorials, every enemy we make that we know of right now anyways, is going to be a collision group of 1. And our bullets that we hit it with are going to be a group 3. All right, so we said before we want this tank to have to be hit multiple times in order for it to be destroyed. So for this, we're going to use a variable, but we're going to be using something called a local variable. And this allows us to have a variable that only impacts like whatever the thing is that it's created in. So if we tie it with this enemy tank, then that means all the enemy tanks will have their own unique local variable to it, and it'll be specific only to that. All right, so, and I'll kind of show you how that works because it's kind of confusing to explain, but easier to show if that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to go here in my prefab, and this is called Actor 2. So I'll go ahead and call this one enemy tank, just like we named our last one enemy boat, so it matches the sprite. And on init, we're going to add an event, and we are going to set variable to value, variable set to value, and we'll click this drop down, and we want to choose local 0, and then use this, and I will call this one tank HP, just for tank hit points. And to start off with, I'm going to say a tank has a hit point value of 2. All right, now if I go here to on hit with anything in group 3, which is the projectiles that our actor, our user controlled actor, which is our airplane, shoots out, we gave it a group 3 and said it collides with things that are group 1, which is our enemies. We'll go here and we will search for variable decrement by 1, and we'll click the drop down, and of course we will select tank HP. So it's going to, every time it gets hit, it's going to take 1 away from its tank HP. All right, and then underneath that, we're going to use a little if statement. So after that happens, this is going to be similar to what we did for the boat. But it's going to be an if statement. So we're going to say compare variable, compare with value. So if enemy, I'm going to choose this, and I want HP, and I'm going to choose under comparisons less than or equal to, just in case something weird happens and a bullet hits it twice or something like that. So if it's less than or equal to 0, and there's not going to be an else statement for this, I'll just click this here, and then I will choose disable else. All right. So if it's equal to 0, then here's what's going to happen. We want to set, let's search here for position, and then we're looking for store actor position in variables. That's what we're looking for. And yep, we want the self on there, and it's going to store the X as enemy X, and Y, select this and go to enemy Y. And if you were just starting this tutorial with this and some of this, you're like, where did you get that from? Go and watch the one previous to this where we added the boat in there, and then this will make all the sense in the world. So we store its position as the variable in there. And then if we go here to our boat and we moved our explosion, so I'm actually just going to copy that from, I'm going to copy that event from here. And if you remember, we cannot make that change to our prefab. And I kind of asked a question about that before and if people have an answer, they can put it in the comments. I'm not sure why it doesn't work that way, but what we can do is we can go ahead and add our enemy tank prefab. And I'll just put it here on this land. And then if I select it, then I can go over here and right underneath store the variables, I can click this little down arrow and I can paste event after, and then it puts it down there. So why it doesn't allow us to do it in the prefab, but it does on the individual one, not really sure. That's just how it is right now. And then we'll add an event and we will deactivate the actor, which is going to be self. And then we'll go underneath that one more time, and we are going to increment variable by 1. And the variable we're going to increment 1, if we click on that, we're going to add 1 to our score. Okay, so here's what happens. It gets hit by a bullet, and then it takes away 1 from the HP. And then if it's greater than 1, or if it's greater than 0, then it's not going to do anything. But if after it gets hit, it has a HP of less than or equal to 0, then it's going to store its position as a variable. It's going to move our explosion animation, which we put all the way up here in our previous tutorial. It's going to move it to that spot, and then it's going to deactivate this tank. So it's like it exploded. And then we will add 1 to our score. All right, so let's see how this works right now. We'll give it a test. Press return here. There's 1, and it exploded. When I press return, it says we have a score of 1. So it did keep score of that. Perfect. Now the next thing that we want to do is I want to make sure that this is going to work with multiple ones of these. Now, when we made those changes, you'll see up here, because we had to add the explosion just to this one sprite, but we didn't do it to the prefab. Up here it says, hey, you made a change, but it hasn't been applied to everything. So I'll click this drop down menu, or this drop down arrow, and then we can go to apply changes. And then any prefab we make is gonna have that in there. Okay, so I'll go back over here to enemy tank, and then I'm gonna put 1 right behind it so we can test this out, because I want to make sure if I hit this once and this one once, that this one doesn't blow up that it's properly keeping track of that variable, if that makes sense. All right. So that's one thing I want to test. Okay, so I hit that one. All right. And then I hit that one. It didn't blow up and it didn't add one to scores. Okay. Now I hit that one with the second one. It kept score of 1. Okay, so now I'm going to try both of them and just make sure, you always want to test for any weird bugs that may happen. So the explosion is happening. Kept track of the score. Perfect. Okay, there's that. Kept track of that. Good. All right, now just to make sure that if we blow all of these up, we're in good shape. All right, and I even got hit once. So we have a score of 3, and it took 1 away from lives. So all of that is working well. So far, so good. Now, if you also remember, if we select our enemy boat, we had when the enemy boat collides with the player, that it explodes and we get the camera shake and we remove 1 from our lives. So I'm actually going to go up here and I'm going to copy this script. I don't want to have to retype that all if I don't have to, right? And then I'm going to go over here to enemy tank and on hit with player, go up here and replace the script. I don't have any script, so it's just replacing it. And then up here, it automatically says with the tank, we have a duration of 0.5. And then we have our camera shake, takes away 1 of our lives. And then if our lives are less than or equal to 0, then we have our game over screen. So that looks good. Let's check that out. Make sure we're set with that. All right, good. Good camera shake on there. Took our lives down there. Didn't have enough time to get both, but takes it down to 1. So we're good with that. If we want to have our tank fire, we can say on update, because if we look at our boat here, we did something similar to this before. So actually we could just copy this script and go to our tank and replace the script in there. And in here, maybe this one, instead of this one shooting 2 seconds, maybe this one's going to be 3 that we'll have it wait for. So it's because it has to be shot twice. We'll say it won't shoot as often. And maybe this one on the bullet, we're going to have the speed go to like speed 2. That might look kind of weird, but it'll add a little bit of variation to this on here. And then we'll say collide with player. Perfect. Then on here we have our player anytime we're hit with a group 3. If you remember in our previous tutorial, then we get the camera shake and then it's going to subtract 1 of our lives and then we'll go to game over. So we already put that in there from our previous tutorials. Let's give this a try again here. All right, we did get hit by both those. I just want to make sure that this works still. Okay, so that does take us to our game over. And then when we start over, our variables are still going back to the original. So that is actually pretty slow for that to fire. So we will go, um, we'll say every 2 seconds, but we will have a slower speed of a bullet for that, and that'll be fine. Okay, and there we have it. That is our second form of enemy that we've added to this. So we've it's another stationary one, but the rate of fire is a little bit different. And you can see how we were able to use those local variables in case you want certain enemies to be a little bit stronger and have to be hit multiple times before they're destroyed. So there's that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know other ideas that you have with that. And then my plan right now is for the next tutorial, we'll then start having some custom movement or different movement of our enemies on the screen to add a little more difficulty to it. As always, I really do appreciate y'all taking the time to watch. Love the feedback that you send, and I sure hope we catch you on our next tutorial video.